Welcome to the episode of the BizDev series where we're diving into the development and sales pipelines of your operating system. If you are following these in order, then you most recently watched the episode on the marketing and engagement pipelines. A lot of this information might seem familiar, and I've said it before, but I think it's worth repeating and kind of getting into the details of it. In particular, I want to talk about the key differences between the two pipeline groups. Marketing and engagement are about the people you don't know yet. The development and sales pipelines are about the people you already know. So people you don't know and people you do know. In the marketing engagement, that focuses on the outreach for the people you would like to know. You're creating awareness, you're starting conversations, and you're moving strangers toward connection. You put opportunities into the development and sales pipelines once that connection exists. These are the people who know you and they know what you do in your current role. You've already talked about work, or even better, and we'll get into this, you've done work for them, which leads us into the two kinds of people that you're going to find in the development pipeline. The first are your existing clients. Every time you deliver a job, the main contact from that project goes back into the development pipeline because you're not done with them. You're continuing to think about how you can help them meet their goals. And now that you've done some work together, you should have a much better idea on how you can do that. So pay attention to that. Someone on your team needs to be paying attention during delivery and thinking about how you can help them succeed next. This is the account management I keep talking about. It's account management in action. And it's the system that I've put together here and built to encourage your delivery team in particular to start thinking like account managers too. That's why you need more than just the salespeople using a CRM and paying attention to all of this. Because when it works well, your delivery people actually might start to feel like they're working for the client as much as they're working for you. And that is not a bad thing. Actually, that is the sweet spot because their interests align with both sides, and that's the kind of tension that usually grows accounts really well. So that ongoing relationship lives in the development pipeline. Sometimes it grows and sometimes it fades, and that is okay. Not every client will expand forever, but your job is to keep thinking, keep helping them, and keep creating opportunities for their success. The second group of people that will be in the development pipelines are the people you know, but you've never worked with. They might have come out of the engagement pipeline, or maybe they're just already in your network. But you've had a conversation with them. They know who you are, but they've never paid you for work. They are leads. They're not clients yet, but you vetted them to such a degree that you believe they could be clients. And with every lead like this, you need to unlock two key pieces of information. And you've heard me talk about this before, but it's their lead score, the high, medium, or low criteria that I was talking about before, which I can't remember where I picked this up from. I think it might have been Blair Anns or someone like that, but I've been using it for a few years now, and it's fantastic. And as I've said, need, experience, and budget is based on these three things. If they have all three of those, they have need, experience, and budget, they're a high lead score. If they have two of the three, they are a medium, and one of the three, they are low. And it is fine to go after any of them, as long as you know why you're going after them. Maybe a low score lead is creatively exciting or strategically interesting for some reason, or obviously a high score lead is a big opportunity and you want to prioritize that. The point is you're making conscious choices. You're not just chasing randomly. You have order and priority to this. And if your team spends too much time on low score leads, you're able to ask why and uncover something like maybe they feel intimidated by the bigger ones, or maybe they need help with the approach. Either way, you can see it clearly and have a conversation about it with your team. The second piece of information is understanding their goals and objectives. You've heard me talk about this before too, but it's really worth repeating. You got to figure out, what are these leads responsible for? What were they hired to achieve? What does success look like for them? You should know that, and you should figure out how you can help them reach it. This is where you're asking better questions and showing curiosity and exploration that it adds value to them. And the development pipeline that I'm talking about here is where all of that kind of thinking lives. And one thing to really note here, nothing in the development pipeline should have money attached yet. It is about insight, it's about timing, and it's about building trust. When a client or a lead, signals an opportunity, and when you help them, or even better yet, if you help them see a need that they didn't even notice, that is when that opportunity, it opens up. And that is when it moves from a lead, right, from the delivery into sales. And the sales pipeline is really the only place money should enter the picture. Yes, delivery is about money too, because you're managing cost and margins, but that is motivated by operations and stewardship more than revenue generation. And I tend to think of revenue actions in the sales pipeline, even when you might be talking with a client that you're working a job on and they do a change order or something like that. But that's really a moment of selling, so it goes back into the sales pipeline. When you're working in the sales pipeline, it means that a project is real, a campaign or a job is being discussed, and there is budget on the table, or there soon will be. Any opportunity in this pipeline must have need established is high in their lead score. So there is no option. They have need, and it's going to show up in this pipeline. You might not know the details yet. You might just have an email from someone that says, hey, we're starting a campaign, we'd like to talk. That is enough to start tracking it in the sales pipeline. From there, the goal is simply to separate yourself from the competitors and build the client's trust to close the deal. And we'll talk more about how to close deals and things like that in an upcoming episode. But for now, just know this is the place you figure out and track how you're landing the project. And once you land the deal, then congrats. This is when you get to turn that lead into a client, and the opportunity changes into a project, and it moves into the delivery pipeline, and the real work begins. And keep in mind, remember, I've said this before, when that wraps, the contact moves right back into the development pipeline again. Delivery, right? Development, sales, delivery, development, sales, round and around, in a cycle that becomes, you've heard me say this before too, the heartbeat of your business. And in each side of each one of these stages and these pipelines, you are measuring action. What are we pursuing? Is it working? What needs to change? Task in each one of these cards, in each one of these stages, that's thinking about moving them along, where you create bias for action that I keep talking about to keep these opportunities moving to the next stage. And when the system is humming, these pipelines, they create this kind of shared visibility so that everyone can see what is happening. And accountability is shared transparently with collaborative support, which is really what you're going for. Okay, that is the philosophy behind the development and sales pipelines. Now let's open up Copper, and I will show you how they look in a practical CRM view. Okay, here we are in Copper, and we're looking at the development pipeline. So I have different views here. You see I'm in development here. It's also up here. Here's the area where we have all of our filters. We can have so many filters that we can imagine that we'd want all done here. And you can see all of the different views here. If I wanted to see all opportunities that's ever lived in the company in this pipeline, I would just hit all opportunities and my entire company's legacy would be here. Remember, nothing ever dies unless you delete it from your work. It just gets segmented by the different kinds of filters here. And you can always see what's happened for as long as the company's been using these kinds of tools. So all opportunities are here, but for this case, we're going to look at open opportunities, but we could look at, we're going to look at leads and clients. We could have it by people and all of the other things we've already talked about. But for the sake of this, let's just have it be open opportunities that I'm seeing here. And remember, in the development pipeline, just remember, the most important thing about this pipeline is that there are two kinds of people in it, right? There are leads and there are clients. So let's start first with leads. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to just look at the leads. Remember, these are people that haven't paid you yet. You haven't done any for them, but you'd like to. These people usually came from the engagement pipeline, right? You had a conversation with them, you saw a potential fit, you marked it as 1 in the engagement pipeline, and you copied a new record into the development pipeline. And the stages here, as you can see, there's only 3, and they're really simple in theory, but they're actually really hard in practice. You have the strategy needed, you have the strategy identified, and you have the dialogue opened stage. So let's start first with this one. Think of the strategy needed as this is like a holding zone, and it indicates that you are interested in somebody, but you haven't quite chosen a path of engagement yet, okay? So this is where you and your team are going to have to put in some effort together to try to make this work. So I'll just pick one here, this one, Bailey DeYoung. So I clicked on this record here, and I see the details of Bailey pop up here. Bailey works for Amazon Web Services, for AWS. This is your kind of your standard card stuff here. The contact's a lead, right? They're not a client, they're a lead. They're a brand, not an agency. I could have any kind of custom fields here that I'd want. But the most important thing are these 2 custom sections that I've built here. And for this one, we're talking about leads, is lead management. Now, remember when you met this person, you had a conversation, your job was to unlock 2 key pieces of information: their lead score and their goals and objectives and what they are trying to do with their job. And so what you're going to do here is answer those and address them in some way. And that becomes the guide for how you develop a strategy to engage them. So I have a connected on LinkedIn socials checkbox field that I made here. This is really important. You'd be surprised how often you're talking to somebody, you know them or whatever, but you've never connected on LinkedIn or Instagram or anything like that. Happens more often than you think. So this is a kind of a reminder to do that. And it kind of serves as a force function to look people up, see what they've been up to, any updates, any information, usually going on social media and kind of doing this online networking approach, uncover something that you didn't think about before. And then you're going to answer some questions that are based on those 2 things that you talked about, that you figured out rather from the conversation. So the leads, goals, and objectives. Describe them. How can you help meet them? So in this case, we have Bailey, who works at AWS. They do a lot of tech tools, and it's cloud computing, very technical, not very human oriented, not very emotional, probably most of the time. So you, through the conversation you had with Bailey, uncovered that they could use a lot of more human approach in their case study work. You've unlocked that. They haven't done it. You see opportunity. They are kind of curious about it, maybe that you figured out in the conversation. And with the course of conversation with your team and the conversation you had with Bailey, have unlocked this is the opportunity because perhaps your company specializes in that more human approach and more emotional approach. So that's the goal and objective that you would all figure out together. And then you have the lead score that you have to figure out and that's right here. Is it high, medium, or low? And once again, it's need, experience, and budget. If they have all 3 of those, then they are high. If they have 2 of those, they're medium. If they have 1 of those, they're low. So pick one. In this case, I think it's a 2, and I'm going to explain that. So right here in the next 3. So for experience fit to what we do, right, if I'm being the production company, it's not fully there because they do corporate explainers and all that kind of stuff, but everything is very tech-oriented or feature-oriented or fact-oriented. And they've never really dabbled much in the emotion and human world of this kind of tech storytelling. So they're not a total fit for the expertise that you have, although you think it could be, but they're not totally there yet, right? They don't have that experience that just matches up perfectly with the kind of stuff that you do. But they do have need. That they have a product launch coming in 6 months, and there is immediate need. Somebody's going to be making something. So how can it be you? That is high. And then they have budget. So we know that through conversation, and if you're not comfortable talking about money up front, get comfortable. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing. It's an honest thing. So get in and talk about budget and money up front early. And through that conversation that you hopefully had, you'll just, the enterprise budgets, they even have budgets that you could build a whole series around if you can make a compelling case. So they have good need, they have a good budget, but they don't have a lot of experience, so they get a medium lead score. So that's how you're going to use this to frame everything you have going forward. So these cards that are in these pipelines, like this development pipeline, it's not just a placeholder here. They're action cards. They're the recipe for how you're moving forward. Everything that you do, and you could add other fields on this, tells you what you should be doing to move these things into the next stage and ideally into the next pipeline. So when you're in the strategy needed stage here, your goal is to research this person and this company together with your team. You're going to use AI tools like Wonder or Perplexity or Claude. You're going to compare notes. You're going to dig into your past work that might map into their world. And then once you lock in a direction, then you move the card into strategy identified. So then I would just take the card here and I would move Bailey over to strategy identified. We've figured that out. So once your team has, and by the way, that is hard work. That shouldn't be like an hour-long conversation or someone going off on their own and figuring it all out by themselves. That should take weeks to figure out because you're really digging into someone's world, and that might seem like a lot of effort, but these clients are worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I think it's worth your time to do that. And to do anything short of that is just, I don't know, it's kind of insulting to the people you're reaching out to. So do that kind of work. Really lean into it and get that strategy identified and really take that bit of work seriously. So once your team has identified a strategy, this is the moment you can begin to reach out to the lead. But don't just send emails that say things like checking in or seeing if you need anything. That doesn't work. It's annoying. It actually adds stress. I've never met a client who appreciates that. So don't do that. Instead, make your outreach carry value that reflects the strategy that you and your team came up with. So, for example, here's some things that you might think about doing. You could add them to your newsletter because you're doing a newsletter, right? And you want to make sure that there's content that's inspired by your strategy so that they can see themselves in your stories. You could even follow up with them and say, hey, I don't know if you saw the story we did in our newsletter that went out, and then explain it to them. Or they can just see it automatically and maybe they engage back. So newsletter. One of my favorite things to do is you could create a micro landing page for them. So on your website, like in this case, it would be .com/AWS or .com/Bailey, and have a page that you custom built for them that includes things like case studies and examples that line up with their world, and send a note along with it that says, thought this perspective might be useful, and then have them go check that out. You can always just curate an email with things that might matter to them right now, like a stat, a story, and a suggestion. Once again, all tied to the strategy you identified. Another one of my favorite techniques is to do, I call them Loom videos, but record a 60-second video message. Nothing fancy, you're just sharing kind of an observation you had about their industry and how, once again, your work connects to it. This is a fantastic sales approach. I'm on all kinds of like subreddits and I talk to industry folks, and sending these Loom videos that really just kind of gives a 1 or 2 minute hello, this is what I'm thinking, explain things through, is such a low barrier of entry for the receiver to see what you're about. They don't feel pressure, they don't feel persuasion, there's no commitment to meet and talk with you, you're just putting it on the line, and it's very, very effective. So try that. You could write the classic, right? Write a short article on LinkedIn. You should be doing this anyway, but this article, once again, remember the marketing engagement pipelines. You're going to write an article and you're not naming the client, but you're clearly aligning with the challenge that they're facing. And then you could do things like tag people in their space so that if you do that right, your marketing might find its way to them naturally, and they see that and like, oh my goodness, yeah, you're showing up in a variety of ways and they're starting to see you around more and more. Or you could be a little bit more direct and simply, by simply sharing it with them via LinkedIn or email. Either way is fine. Email is almost a little bit better, but LinkedIn is fine too. Share a resource or a piece of research that you come across. It could be an article, a report. an expert video that you just watched, and then you add a quick note that connects it back to a challenge that you might be able to help them meet, right? Every single time attaching it back to the strategy that you and your team developed. But if all of that seems too technical and it seems you're not prepared for that, there's always the more relationship style way of doing this and engaging and opening up dialogue. Like you might invite them to something, right? You have a small round table that you'd invite them to, behind the scenes of a shoot, as long as it's okay with the client. Invite them to an event that feels exclusive or relevant to the world. People love getting invited to things, so ask them out. You could send a progress update or an insight, something like, hey, we just wrapped a project that tackled this issue. We tackled X. And then, once again, connect it to the strategy you see for them. Or you could kind of engage curiosity and ask for their opinion, right? Send over something that you're working on or that you're thinking about, and you genuinely ask, what they think about it, because curiosity often opens up these kinds of conversations. These are just a variety of things you can do. There's so much more, but every tactic that you do should reflect your strategy back to them. Show them you understand their world and give them something they didn't have before, like a new insight, an idea, a perspective, or special experience. This is the recipe for effectively staying top of mind that everybody talks about. Everybody always says, we got to stay top of mind. It's got to stay top of mind. But rarely are they doing anything that's effective at doing that. These are the kinds of things that are. And when you've done all of this, then you can move the opportunity to the dialogue open stage. So when an opportunity comes up on their end, or when a campaign initiative starts taking shape, you're going to be one of the first people they reach out to. Or, even better, through your suggestion and inspiration, they might start to see new opportunities themselves and invite you into their team for deeper conversations, like maybe with the people they report to. And that's really the indicator that you're doing all of this right. And when that happens, and you've done it, congratulations, you've won the development pipeline, because you've unlocked a need and you're in a conversation, and now there's a real opportunity to collaborate. And when that moment hits, a new opportunity is made in the sales pipeline, and from there you just need to close the deal. So for here, I would take Bailey Young, move it over to dialogue open when that's happened, and in this case, I engaged, I did some of those things that we talked about here, some of those practices, and then I mark it 1. So then I mark it 1. I'm going to change this person from a lead. You could mark them as client here now. Actually, no, you would keep them as lead. I'm sorry. When they win a sales, when you mark them to client. So they stay as lead. You're going to close this card today in the development pipeline. And then for customer workflow, it says do nothing. That means the card would just end here. But what we want to do is move it to sales. And once you've done this once, it stays with this prompt. So then you hit save. Now I have a new opportunity that was just created in the sales pipeline. It says a copy here. I could change the name of it. This is often where it changes from a person's name to a project. You had a conversation with Bailey. It led to more and more. You have a campaign. So now when you go into the sales pipeline, it might be called something very different. So I would say AWS sample campaign. And now that is in your sales pipeline as that. It's a brand new card. So if I go to sales pipeline, it should be there. AWS sales campaign there. So brand new way to go. So let's go back to this though, because now I think let's talk about how you do this with clients. So I'm in now the clients. That was all about leads, remember? That was people that you never have worked with before, and you're getting to know and you're developing them. But now you're in clients. So let's talk about how you do it with clients. So now you're just looking, at the client filter here, and you're in the development pipeline still, and nothing's really changed there. And I can have all of these different filters if I want, but we're just looking at the one called clients, and these are just people that I've worked with in the past. And after delivery has wrapped on a job from these people, an automation drops that main contact from the job back into the development pipeline and into the strategy needed stage. And you could choose the right timing, whether that is immediately or maybe 6 months later, whatever fits the relationship, but the goal is the same. Identify a strategy to help this client succeed next, and then open up that dialogue. But this time, you're going to use the client management section in the card to guide your thinking. So if I go here and I'm going to close lead management on this, and I have client management is what it's going to prompt us to move forward here from this point forward. And I should say, it is really important that this approach that I'm going to show you here, it comes from a person named Jenny Plant, and she is an excellent account management coach that I highly recommend you send your delivery team to for training. I'm going to give you a brief overview of this work, but through like hands-on training and context with Jenny, you can take client growth to a whole new level. So I strongly encourage you to check out Jenny's work and what she does, and she'll putting this stuff into practice is much more than what I'm going to do right here. But here's the basics. So for you have 3 questions that you're kind of going to need to answer. Remember, these are for clients. And the first one is, what's their view of us? And to answer that, you have 4 levels to choose from. You have level 1, responder, level 2, relationship, level 3, challenger, and level 4, futurist. If you're level 1, that means you're a trusted executor. You deliver the work. You're serviceable. That's what you do. They hire you. You deliver it. You meet the basic needs. There's nothing more, nothing less. You're level 1. That's okay. If you're level 2, you're providing the work, and the work is really good, but you have a great experience as well. You love working with you. You're a great communicator. You're always on time, always on budget. On set, the whole team feels welcome. There's concierge kind of service, proactive, pre-pro meetings that are just, setting everybody up for success. Everyone feels smarter than when they're working with you. You could even actually charge higher fees than the competition because working with you is worth it. So that is a level 2 relationship that you really, really do want to have. Level 3 is the challenger one. And that is when you start getting into, you are invited into impacting the current goals of the organization. So you're thinking about how you can get into the strategy and the return on investment, the clicks, the views, measurements, that you can make campaigns often tied to media buy or where things are being viewed and what kind of screen and the kind of story that fits. And with everything, you really get into that so that you have better chances of helping this client meet their goals, and you can be and you're in that conversation. That's a level 3 relationship, the view of us. And then level 4 is the futurist, same thing, but now it's not about current goals. You're actually so embedded with the team that they bring you in to help plan future goals, to help think about what is even possible, because you're such an expert in this market. You're such an expert in and how you approach the market in video and production and campaign strategy, agency work, all of that stuff. So that's that one. Important to know. Then the next question is, what's the growth opportunity? And these are related to each other. So there's 4 levels here that relate to the 4 levels over there. And in this one, you have level 1, you need to improve your service. Level 2 is expand. Level 3 is prove. And then level 4 is evolve. So with that level 1, if you want to expand, if you want to grow from that, the thing that you need to do is do something above and beyond. You need to provide better work. It needs to look better. You need to get more than what they bargained for. It needs to go above expectations. Just if you're here, the goal to get out of here and to grow from here is to increase work. In level 2, expanding, this is where you have that trust, the experience, everything is kind of there. And from there, if you want to grow, this is where you are qualified now to ask for referrals. Other higher up people in the company, people in other departments or other teams within that company, peers in other companies. The referral rate is where you grow from here, and you have the authority to do that because you've earned that kind of level of relationship. Level 3 is when, once again, you start to get involved. You want to grow. You want to get involved in helping them meet their current goals. You're not just making a video and it doesn't matter to you if it sits on a shelf or it gets used or it doesn't. You actually care about it. You actually care that this stuff is being effective, and you're asking to be involved in that conversation to make the current work really, really land and meet their goals. And then there's level 4. Once again, it's about then not only hitting those current goals, but actually being brought in to set the future goals of this organization. So anyway, that's what you want to do there. And then finally, you're going to have this last one, and this is around a little bit more around personality and politics, but it's really, really important for you to answer and to answer honestly and think about where you sit in all of this. So with your current client, you have 4 different kind of relationships here. That is with the primary contact of this client. That is the client. Are they a passive supporter, an active supporter, a passive blocker, or an active blocker? If they're a passive supporter, that's good. They like you, they value your work, and things are really pretty good, but they don't have much influence in the company. So that would be called a passive supporter. And in this scenario, what you need to do is just grow with this client, help them. Perhaps they're junior and you want to expand them. You want to help get them to become more senior, and you might actually invest in them. And this is just kind of a long-term growth. They might go to another company. So just kind of stay with them and invest in them. They like you, and just grow with them. And I will add that this is a very good sales technique, and I've talked about it before in a few different areas. If you're reaching out to new clients, don't always go to the CMO. Start, like put filters on LinkedIn, for instance, to say anytime a company, these group of companies, hire somebody new, get a notification that says, hey, a new hire was done that's called creative producer or associate producer or something like that. So that then you can see that person, say, congrats, I'm so glad you're part of that team, and then invite them into your world, get them trained up on your point of view and how you do things. And then when they're in the room, they're carrying your water for you, and they might bring opportunities on your behalf. So that's a really good strategy. Don't undervalue those. They're really important. The best spot to be in, of course, is to be an active supporter. So not only do these people value you and your work, but they have high influence in the company. And this is the best position to be in. And if you're in that position, your goal is simply just to make these people the most important. So as we all get pressured for time and capacity and all of that, and we start having to make priorities, these people get the priority. And you keep them close, and you keep them smart, and you invest in them. Don't let this one go. It's more important than anyone else. But then you have the flip side to all of this. You have the passive blocker. This is somebody who doesn't value, for whatever reason, they don't value you or your services or something like that. And it's not good, but it could be worse because they don't have that much influence in the company either. But it's not good because they might get influence in the company. And this situation happens a lot, usually because of insecurities, threatened, or whatever it might be, often with more junior people. And if that's the case with you, it's incumbent on you to overcome that. You need to repair that. You need to build that trust. Maybe fall in a more subversive kind of role. Let them be the alpha. Invest in them. Help them grow. Help them so they're not threatened by you, or whatever else it might be, and fix that. And then lastly, you have the active blocker. This is a very bad spot to be in, because not only do they not value your services and you, they do have a lot of influence in the company. And when this happens, your go-to move is simply get your top person to meet with their top person and have them talk. You get out of the way, get your founder, your CEO, your president, and get the highest person at their company and get together and reset this relationship. That might be a case study session, a listening session. Oftentimes listening is better than talking, to figure that out. But like I said, Jenny Plant, if you take her training, goes into all kinds of ways to deal with all of these kinds of scenarios and so much more. It's really, really good. And this gives you the kind of the basics of this strategy here. But as for developing, the same principles apply that we walked through with the leads. You're moving people through the pipeline the same way. You start with a strategy. You use these prompts and fields to help you think about how to develop that strategy, how to engage with it, and how to grow that relationship. Once again, your goal is to stay top of mind, to help clients see something that they may not have seen before. And when that happens, when they are brought in and you bring them something new, boom, congratulations, you've done it again. You've won the development pipeline, and a new opportunity can be created into sales, okay? So this one here would move over, I'd mark it 1, and then it goes into sales and a new opportunity is made. And now it's over in the sales pipeline and you're working that. Okay, I do want to add, there's one more thing I want to talk about here. You're seeing me create these new records, copying records, and not simply moving them through the pipelines. I'm sure you have questions about that. But the reason for that, there's a couple reasons for that. The primary reason for it actually is it's philosophical. So in almost any Fortune 500 company where there's large sales teams, they do this approach. And what they're doing is practicing the act of taking the laborious, long marathon journey of sales and leads and all of that kind of stuff and putting it into smaller chunks with wins in distinct stages that require distinct approaches and muscles and all of that. So it's really much more inspiring psychologically to do it in these smaller chunks. So when a job starts, or when an opportunity rather starts in like the engagement pipeline, it stays in the engagement pipeline, whether you win it, whether you lost it, or whether you abandon it. It never leaves there. It stays there in perpetuity forever. But when you do win it and you get that dopamine hit and it moves it into sales, it's kind of a chance to reset, rethink, and it gives you kind of renewed spirit to continue moving on to try to land a deal. So there's a whole psychological approach to this whole thing and why you do that. The other is a little more operational. So it's also much, much better for reporting. Say like somebody comes into the company next week and they want to get a history of what's going on. They can see where people started, their engagement, or they started right in sales, and they get a really good sense of that and where that lives. And we're going to get into reporting later, but it's just much, much better for reporting as well. So there's a whole operational side to it, and there's other reasons as well, but those are kind of the drivers of it. You could do it the other way. When I first started out, I did it the other way. I learned that this is a much better approach, and I've only used it since then, and I encourage you to do it as well. So that kind of explains why you copy records. And when you do that, when you move it, like for instance, we just moved an opportunity from development to a sale, and we copied it into the sales pipeline, all of that information comes with the card. But as we looked before, some of the fields in the cards are going to be different depending on the pipeline, and that will show up. Some will go away, new ones will approach, and you start filling that out. Okay, so that I just wanted to explain that a little bit. Now, where was I? The big picture. The big picture is simple, right? Development creates opportunity. Sales converts opportunity to revenue. Delivery fulfills it, and that cycle that just goes back into development, and that rhythm of delivery and development and sales and delivery and development and sales. Once again, is the heartbeat of your operating system. Okay. So there you have it. That's how the development and the sales pipeline connect and how they work together inside of your business operating system. Now, I was originally going to dive deeper into the sales pipeline here, but to be honest, this video has already gone longer than I like these to be. So I'm going to stop it here and let you digest all of this. In the next video, we're going to combine the sales pipeline and how it's built to help you land a deal, and we'll get into that step by step in the next video. I hope this has been helpful and that I'm offering you the right level of detail. Remember, the number one takeaway from this episode is to create a bias for action. Create prompts, create conversations. Always be thinking about how to move opportunities to the next stage and ultimately the next pipeline. And don't forget about the task here. These are so important. Every single card should have tasks attached to it that make it clear who is doing what to move things forward. It could be research, it could be drafting ideas, it could be presenting options, or simply just reaching out. Whatever it is, have it written right there on the card so everyone can stay accountable and you can keep momentum. The development pipeline is the heartbeat of the whole system, and it's where your curiosity, it becomes an opportunity, and you need to think of it that way. Okay, I hope this breakdown was worth the time and that it helps you kind of build your own rhythm of progress. All right, let's get into the next episode.